great way to open up the age of Jackson is by looking at what some French guy says. This guy's name was Alexis de Tocqueville, and he and his friend Gustave Beaumont visited the United States in 1831, ostensibly to observe our prison system. America's prisons were apparently the model for the rest of the world. We were undergoing a series of prison reforms to make our prisons not just some place where you lock people up, but a place where you could reform individuals and make them useful members of society. So Beaumont and de Tocqueville want to see this. And while they're here looking at our prisons, they decide they're going to take a tour of the United States. And they go around the entire United States as it was at that time. They go everywhere from New England to Niagara Falls to the Great Lakes, down the Ohio River to the Mississippi River. They see the cotton fields of the Deep South, and they make their way all the way back up. And one of the last stops on their trip is a dinner with President Andrew Jackson. I love what they say about Andrew Jackson. Mr. Serrière, the French ambassador, presented us yesterday evening to the President of the United States. The latter is General Jackson. He is an old man of 66 years, well preserved, and appears to have retained all the vigor of his body and spirit. He is not a man of genius. Formerly, he was celebrated as a duelist and hothead. His great merit is to have won the 1815 Battle of New Orleans against the English. That victory made him popular and brought it about that he was elected president. So true it is in every country that military glory has a prestige that the masses can't resist, even when the masses are composed of merchants and businessmen. Americans love their military heroes. The President of the United States occupies a palace, the White House, occupies a palace that in Paris would be called a fine private residence. Talk about an insult. I mean, that's as backhanded an insult. Oh, your White House. Oh, it's very quaint. Its interior is decorated with taste, but simply. The salon in which he receives us is infinitely less brilliant than those of our ministers. He has no guards watching at the door, and if he has courtiers, they're not very attentive to him. There are no servants. It's just Jackson sitting in this big friggin' house. For when we entered the salon, he was alone. We chatted of things that were insignificant enough, and he made us drink a glass of Madeira wine, and we thanked him using the word monsieur, like the first comer. People in France have got an altogether false idea of the President of the United States. They see in it a sort of political sovereignty and compare it constantly with our constitutional monarchies. Of a certainty, the power of the King of France would be nil if it were modeled after the power of the President of the United States. And the authority of this president would be 1,000 times too large did it resemble the King of France. Now, that was actually Gustave Beaumont writing that. But it gets put into a large compendium of work called Democracy in America, and it is an international bestseller. People around the world want to know what it's like to live in America, and de Tocqueville's the guy who writes the book telling people around the world what America is like. And it's great because it's written from an outsider's point of view. And the thing that de Tocqueville says is America's greatest strength is the involvement of the individual in all levels of decision making. The people have the power, the people have the authority to make decisions from the highest level down to the street level, literally. Do we need to patch that hole in the street? Yes, let's get a committee together and fix it. The government of a democracy brings the notion of political rights to the level of the humblest Tocqueville says this is the great strength of America, the engagement of the body politic in decision making, the polity. And the reason why you have that is because starting in the 18 teens and going into the 1820s, there was a general trend sweeping the states, and that was universal white male suffrage. Property rights. Remember, in order to vote, you had to be a white male property owner? The property owner thing is gotten rid of. All you need to be is a white male. Which involves now a great deal more of the people. And it's going to be up to the politicians of the era to try to cater to this larger electorate. And the person who can put their fingers on the pulse of the average man is going to be the person who is politically successful. Now, states where they were slow to act are going to see anger. For instance, in Rhode Island in 1842, Rhode Island was the last state to grant universal white male suffrage. And the people of Rhode Island rose up and overthrew their governor and elected a new governor named Thomas Dorr. And there was essentially a little civil war going on in Rhode Island between the original governor and this new governor. There was even talk of sending the Marines in to stop this rebellion. But what it shows is that the people are demanding political access. Now, we've been through the election of 1824, the end of King Caucus, the corrupt bargain, John Quincy Adams's miserable presidency, the organization of the Democratic Party. So what is it that the Democrats believe? They believe in promoting universal white male suffrage, which is why they are going to become the dominant political power in the lead up to the Civil War. They're going to be the ones who tap in to that common man idea. They believe in economic and political opportunity for all white males. It should be the government's role to try to promote that wherever possible. They believe in a limited government. Does this sound familiar? They distrust elites. Does that sound familiar? I mean, this sounds like the old Jeffersonian Republicans. They attack centers of privilege. Centers of privilege? You mean like the bank? The stock market? Monopolies? Rich people? They're anti-monopoly, pro-working class, pro-small farmer, and definitely get the rural vote. They are the heirs to the Democratic, Republican, anti-federalist ideology. Which means that the opposition is going to be the flip side of this. Right? So the people who come out in opposition to Jackson, first of all, they have a problem trying to figure out what their name is going to be. They call themselves Republicans, National Republicans. Eventually, they're going to settle on the name Whig. I can get back to this if you need me to. But the National Republicans, or Whigs, are going to coalesce around Henry Clay and the American system and the promotion of American business. They are in favor of business and industry, merchants and banking. They generally tend to be reformers. They believe in industrial and commercial development and the expansion of trade. Whigs are primarily interested in economic development, which means they're in favor of a bank, they're in favor of a protective tariff, and they're in favor of federal funding of internal improvements. They are the heir to the old federalist ideology of a strong central government that promotes economic and industry. So in the election of 1828, Jackson wins handily. They tap into the common man. More and more common people are voting. And Andy Jackson even celebrates this by opening up the White House on Inauguration Day and having essentially a big kegger on the front lawn. He wants to celebrate the common man and show that he's one of you by opening up the White House and having this big inauguration party where they're breaking the plates, and they're tearing down the curtains, and they're muddying up the rugs. Poor old Andy Jackson had to be...
Good morning, Southern. Today is Thursday, November 21st, a V-Day. Please stand for your Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, students and teachers. Mr. Bragaccini, got a quick announcement. Tomorrow, after Bulldog Block, seniors will report to the auditorium. Since you won the Harvest for Hungry competition, you watch a movie, and then you'll have donuts afterwards again. Seniors will report to the auditorium after Bulldog Block tomorrow, watch a movie, get donuts afterwards. That'll all occur during first period, and then you'll go to second period. Now for the rest of the morning announcements.
Anyway.
Help support prom breakfast by attending our November restaurant fundraiser at the Lebanese Tavern in Annapolis,
Lebanese
Maryland.
Taverna,
Today
not
at the
tavern,
Annapolis Harbor
Taverna.
location. We will receive 20% of all orders for the day's sale. Gift card purchases also count. Please bring a flyer or cell phone photo of the flyer to ensure credit. Extra flyers are in the main office. The food is delicious, and the golden will be
very good.
Today is the day. National Art Honor
Look,
Society.
why is Jackson popular? Because he taps into that common man ideology. His nickname, Old Hickory. I mean, it conveys backwoods, rough, simple. Yet the man lived in a house that looked like this. He's wealthy. He's one of the richest men in the United States.
Do not miss
Yeah.
the bus. They call him Old Hickory because he carried around a...
Are you struggling in your classes? Do you need
He
help
did
with homework?
carry around a cane. He did beat people up with it, yes. He also had 2 bullets in his chest from duels that he had been in. Look, Andrew Jackson is the epitome of an American. He starts out in the backwoods of the Waxhaw down in North Carolina. He's orphaned by the age of 15. He gets involved in drinking, fighting, horse races, the whole 9 yards, and then he teaches himself the law, builds himself up by his own bootstraps, and becomes a player in Tennessee politics. He's actually the first representative from Tennessee in the first Congress. He's elected senator from Tennessee. And then he's named general during the War of 1812. So, I mean, he's got connections, and he owns a house. Guys, when your house has a name, you're not a common man. His house, the name of his house was the Hermitage. That does not sound common.
SGA is collecting.
But he portrays himself as the common man, and that's what's going to build his political brand over his presidency. All right, I'm
Well,
done.
this off-road morning announcement doesn't have a great day.
That's him, yeah, involved in fisticuffs.
Really?
Yes,
That
yes.